Hello, everyone. Hello, hello, hello. You're sipping with Shakita on tonight. So let's talk. I'm excited about being here on tonight. I hope you guys are excited as well. We're looking forward to a great night tonight. We're going to talk about the causes of mental illness. So far, we have spoken about depression, anxiety, stress, those sorts of things. We've already gone through a lot of those things, and we want to kind of tie everything in on tonight because this is our last podcast dealing with mental health, and maybe later on down the road, we'll go back over some of these things or some of the other things that could also affect you as far as your mental health. So tonight we have my husband back on, Terry Anderson Jr. So let's welcome him. All right. So he's on, and I wanted him to deal with the children and teenagers on tonight. So tonight he's going to get started, and I hope you got your tea. And some of you guys say you like coffee, so I guess you can do that too. So let's sip tonight. All right. So let's dialogue. Let's talk. Don't forget to like and subscribe on our podcast, also YouTube channel. And don't forget to put in your comments or any suggestions for topics or anything that you would like to hear about or hear being discussed. Or even if you have any questions about some of the things that we have already discussed or whatever, maybe some things might not have been clear to you, or maybe you just want to kind of add something to it. And, so we just want to hear from you. So let us know what you think. And also just, again, like I said, like and subscribe. So we're going to go ahead and get started and allow Terry to come on and get started with his part.
All right, good evening, everyone. I'm happy to be back. My wife invited me back once again to participate in the Sippin with Shakita, which I'm honored to be part of because it's some very good topics that we believe need to be discussed and addressed in every household, especially our local households. And we've seen a lot of these things personally, but no one wants to talk about it. So that's why we want to talk about these things. And like you said, my part tonight, we're talking about kids and teenagers, more like teenagers, and how it affects them, depression and things that causes depression and mental illness in general with teens and kids. I have 5 points. I like to have. I'm a ex-military guy, so I like to have a certain number of points to help keep me in line, chronological order, because that's the way I was. That's just where my brain works. So I have 5 points I will talk about that causes mental illness in teens and even children. The first one is family problems.
Very good.
A lot of kids have mental illness and depression because what's going on in their household, their family. Mom and dad might not be getting along, or dad might not come around. They might, if they know that or mom and dad just divorced, separated. Kids are forced to live here for 6 months, live over there for 6 months. All those things tie into kids being depressed and having a lot of stress and having a little mental illness. So you need to watch out for those. For the kids or divorced or separated families, keep a close eye on those things with those children that might be facing. Because it's a long statistics that talks about that. The second point that kids and teens might be depressed or face mental illness issues is obesity. Kids who are overweight, according to statistics, are 50% more likely to recall names than versus 10% of normal weight kids. So they are more likely to just be picked on just because of their size. Nothing to do with their personality, their academics, their social skills, none of that. Just they're larger, way more, and kids, I heard kids when I was coming up calling kids fat, so, and be big as a house and different things like that. And I saw the kids' faces. I was never one personally. I'm not bragging, but I was never one person that liked seeing kids be bullied. And actually, I told my wife that 90% of my fights I got in school were defending other kids because they were being picked on. I didn't like that. Even as a kid, I don't like seeing kids just to be picked on just because of how they look. So obesity is a big problem with kids being feeling depressed because they feel inadequate. Our society talks about and shows on TV the slim bodies and this how you should look. This is what considered beautiful. This is what considered looks good. So people who are larger than that often face depression, and kids are no different than adults. Society says you should look like 110 pounds, but some people that's not just going to happen. even in kids. So society helps shapes a lot of that. What we think looks good and what looks bad. But as long as you're healthy, you should be good to go. But obesity is something that kids face that causes them to have mental illness problems and depression. A third one would be peer problems in general. Peer problems in general. Kids wants to fit in. I mean, kids wants to be part of the cool kids,
Right.
whatever you want to call them. The cool kids sit at the cool kids table. You know, with the kid with the pop his collar or whatever, or the black jacket like James Dean, or whatever they consider cool. Little whatever the rapper's name, Little Uzi Vert. I don't know if that's a good example, but whoever Lil Wayne, somebody little. All these kids are considered cool. They want to be part of that group. That's why they dress a certain way.
Right.
That's why they wear their hair a certain way, because they want to be part of that group. They don't want to be the black sheep. They don't want to be socially awkward. That's a key word, socially awkward. Because they don't know what their identity is. They're trying to find their identity.
Right.
And they're searching for it, but they just don't fit in with this group. They don't fit in with that group. So they don't fit in. So they be loners and when those kids start being alone too much, you really need to watch out and keep a close eye on them. Those loners are the ones that sometimes snap. Because they never want to be with nobody, never want to go anywhere, never want to do anything, never want to go watch a movie. They don't have any friends to hang with. Keep a close eye out on them. See what they're doing when they locked them in the room all day, every day. Just knock on the door or just go in the room because it's your house. So be very careful, to pay attention to what's going on. When no kids just sit, they're just socially awkward and just stay in the rooms all day. They might be building a bomb. You never know what they're doing in there.
Never know.
So just keep an eye on it. They might want to harm themselves.
Right.
Because they want to be part of the group. Peer problems in general. They want to be accepted. So it's up to you and parents and adults to tell them that they are accepted, that they are loved, they are wonderful, they are smart. Speak the positive things into them so they don't have to feel they have to be accepted because that group don't accept them. They can know that that's their laws. That's their laws that they don't want to accept me.
Right.
So you have to build them up at home. But that's one of the main problems with peer problems. Number 4, and I'm moving quickly, is bullying.
Right.
We know kids are getting bullied from kindergarten even to 12th grade. A lot of the 12th graders won't ever admit it because they're too ashamed to admit it because they're in 12th grade. They don't want to admit that they're being bullied still. People still, bumping them in the hallway or, back in my days, they take the lunch money. Kids just starve. It still happens.
Right.
Bullying. 86% of kids contribute bullying and it turn to violence. 80% of kids who turn to violence say they experience some type of bullying. 86% of kids who turn violent acts say they experience bullying. 75% of school shooters reported being bullied at one point. It ties together. 75% of school shooters, those kids that you pick it on and getting plunking in the head and spitting at or laughing at and everybody joning on or whatever. A lot of those kids come back with guns and they just shoot up everybody and just mental illness. So 75% of kids of those school shooters experience bullying. 64% of kids who are bullied don't even report it because they're embarrassed to report it. 64% of kids who experience bullying don't ever report it. They just take it. They just take it and do the best they can. Won't tell their parents, won't tell the teachers, won't tell the principal, won't tell anybody. They just suck it up and take it. But sometimes if they don't stop, they can explode also and cause mental illness. And 71% of kids, I think it's higher than that, or even though I wrote down the statistics, experience bullying. I mean, witness bullying. I've seen kids get bullied pretty much from kindergarten to 12th grade. So they'll witness some type of bullying. So most kids witness other kids bullying. And the bullying, a lot of the bullies are bullied themselves. That's why they turn to bullies because they were bullied. A lot, especially even when I read about the obese kids, they start bullying other people because they feel inadequate and they feel down because they've been bullied because of their weight. So they turn around and use their weight to bully smaller people. So a lot of times that's the defense mechanism. There's the kids turn to bullies that were being bullied at one point. And the last one I want to talk about quick, number 5, is kids who are experiencing mental illnesses are either witness or a victim of physical or sexual abuse. They either witness it or they experience physical or sexual abuse. And that causes kids to be messed up all through high school, and even some people in their 40s and 50s and 60s still dealing with sexual assault. Somebody no matter molested them or raped them when they was 9 years old or whatever, boys and girls alike. And these things mess people up because nobody never talks about it. A lot of times our families push it under the rug, which isn't right. Because there's somebody in your family, your cousin did it, or the uncle who got out of prison did it. I don't care who did it. They push it and cover it up, which is wrong, and they're dead wrong. And they should have called the authorities and protected that child, innocent, and had somebody locked up. If they're big enough to do the crime, I said they're big enough to do the time. I don't care who it is. Family, blood, first go to jail. He's gonna be preaching, jail sermons next week. So that's my take on that. So that's what I want to say. And my last thing is, 75% of all mental health conditions start at the age of 24. 75% of all mental health conditions start at the age of 24. So that means those teenage years are very important to get a hold of this mental illness thing, because 24 is still pretty young. 75% of all mental health start at the age of 24 years old. So let's help our teens and kids out.
All right, awesome. Very good. Very good. Thank you so much for that information, because that information helps, and I'm sure that many of you probably have faced some of those things that has been mentioned already from Terry. So let us take those things in stride and let us start examining ourselves and also looking at our children and our youth, because we want them to understand that there's an outlet and that we want them to be able to trust us enough to come and talk to us no matter what the situation is. So we want to get them to the point where they can understand, listen, these things can affect your life, not only right now, but when you get into your adult age, adulthood, these things can follow you and hunt you, because a lot of times you suppress those things as young children and youth, and then when you finally get into adulthood, these things just come out of nowhere. Like he was talking about, you'll just explode, and you don't even realize what has happened to you, because you have suppressed so many different things that has happened to you maybe in your childhood. So you have to be very careful. Mental illness can start at any age.
That's right.
It does not matter when it starts. Just know that a lot of times people don't realize that they're experiencing mental illness. So therefore, when on the on-side of you realizing that something just isn't right and something just isn't clicking with you because of the different emotions and the different things that you're going through, that's when you might want to reach out and start talking to somebody, or even do some research yourself and look up some of these symptoms and start finding out, let me check out what might be going on with me. I'm having this symptom, I'm having that symptom. So you want to start researching and digging deep into finding out what could be possibly wrong with you. Now, I want to talk about the most common things in mental health. Now, 1 out of 5 adults has a mental illness. And it can happen within the years. As the years come, out of 1 of 5 adults suffer with mental illness.
20%.
Yes.
20%.
So we need to understand that mental illness is very serious, and it should be taken very serious as well. So what we have to do is okay. So like mental illness, let me just say this really quickly. You don't have to suffer with mental illness. Mental illness is something that you can get rid of if you catch it at its early stages. Yeah. If you don't catch it at the early stages, then there's some kind of medication that you can take, and there's counseling, and there's other different resources and outlets that you can become a part of, whereas you can deal with mental illness. But when you allow it to become so drastic to the point where you've lost sense of yourself, then that's an issue, because there's more than one thing that you have to do that comes on you when mental illness take place, because you have so many different things. Like how we understand that when you say you got one spirit, you might have multiple spirits. Same thing with mental health. You might be dealing with alcoholism. So when you're dealing with alcoholism, guess what sometimes follow alcoholism? Depression. So there's different things that comes with this different forms of mental illness. So let me go ahead and go through that. As we already know, Terry talked about the children and the youth
Mm-hmm.
and teenagers, because a lot of times those things do happen in their adulthood, and we have already established that. Now I want to talk to you about some of the identifying factors that you can look at and begin to say, okay, I see this not only in myself, or maybe I see it in somebody else, because they are either digressing or progressing in this situation.
Mm-hmm.
So now you want to look at the history of your family. A lot of times when I say history of your family, I'm talking about the bloodline, your lineage, your relatives that's closest to you, like your parents or your siblings. You want to begin to see if you see any of these signs that's taking place as far as mental illness concerns them. So if you look back at your genealogy and you begin to say, okay, well, maybe my great grandma